How's it going? And welcome back to another episode of Mood for Feud. Welcome back to the very first bonus episode. I'm going to try and trial a bit of a different format for the show, so please give me feedback, let me know what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Basically, as you might know if you've been following the show, I have been struggling to keep up with the weekly release schedule, particularly when I'm working, because for these episodes it does require quite a bit of research. You know, I want to properly dive into the feuds that I'm covering. I want to make sure that I've got a good understanding of both sides of the story, and then also looking into the background of whoever's feuding, and there's like a sweet spot, but like if the celebrity is too big, then like there's almost an information overload that you need to weed through to get the bits that matter. And then on the other hand, when I'm covering an influencer or someone who's a little bit less A-list, you go into the opposite issue, which is there's no info, so then you really have to dig through like the back ends of the internet, you know, Reddit pages, you're on some random Facebook group, and all that to say is it can be incredibly time consuming for me to put together these episodes, and I've been trying to find ways to make it more efficient, the process. I've thought about maybe I don't need to go as deep into the research, maybe I can keep it more surface level. But originally what made me interested in celebrity feuds and wanting to start this show was because I wanted to get into those details, do you know what I mean? And so compromising on the level of research I do to try keep up with a weekly release schedule, which is obviously ideal, is just a bit unrealistic for me at the moment. My way of compromising this is I was thinking I could do a new deep dive feud, you know, classic typical Mood for Feud episode every second week. However, because I still want to engage with you guys every week and give you guys something new to listen to, I could then do a bonus episode in between those, which, you know, requires a little bit less research. It would probably be either like a trending topics, you know, pop culture news roundup type thing. It would be a good way for me to engage with pop culture content that isn't related to a feud, and it would also give me the chance to speak on things that are a little bit more topical, you know, as they're happening. And so every second week, it means that you would still be getting some kind of podcast content from me. They would be less research focused compared to the deep dives. Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're not your cup of tea, you can obviously always skip them or listen to them silently and give me those streams. I don't know. I'm interested to trial this. I'm excited because I think this is a good middle ground for me to continue researching to the level that I do, but also making sure that you do have some new content every single week. So, for this week's first bonus episode, I really want to get into the Olympics because I feel like there were so many viral internet moments that came out of the Olympics this year, and yeah, I just want to recap them, go through them, give you my 10 cents on them, and then if you want to give me your 10 cents on them, please do message me on Instagram at Mood for Feud, and yeah, let's get talking. So I don't know about you guys, but I was so much more into the Olympics this year than I have been the previous years. I think I haven't been this excited about the Olympics since like 2008 when we had the Beijing Olympics, and I don't know, I was just really, I think, how old was I? I was like 11 at the time, and since then I've like occasionally tuned in, but I haven't felt that Olympics fever for such a long time. Definitely the last couple of Olympics, I don't even think that I've tuned in, and you know, maybe that was a mix of the pandemic blues. I feel like everything that I liked about my pre-COVID life, I've struggled to continue in my post-COVID life, but this year I was all over it. And again, like, I'm not entirely sure what the reason is. I'm not sure if it's because it was marketed really well. Maybe it's just that I'm unemployed right now, so I actually have time to watch the events, or maybe it's because I will say the Olympics coverage in Australia is absolutely elite. You could watch every single event that was happening for free, and yeah, maybe that was the reason. So all that to say, I've just really enjoyed the Olympics, and let me know if you've been feeling the same. Which sports did you end up watching the most? I play volleyball very casually in my real life, so I really enjoyed watching Olympic volleyball. It's just a whole different sport to whatever I'm doing on the court. So I definitely watched a lot of volleyball, which was expected. But one sport that I didn't expect to get into was sports climbing, which is essentially like rock climbing. And they've got two different categories. They've got the one where you have to just get up the wall as fast as you can, and then they have the other one which is more of a like puzzle almost, and you're like strategically trying to figure out how to climb the wall. So I started off watching it kind of as a roast. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit like rock climbing, whatever. By the end of it, like, I'm pretty sure I watched most of the finals. I was following the scoring. Yeah, I don't know, I got really into it. So curious to know if you guys had similar experiences. Were there sports that you watched a lot of? Were there these unexpected events that you just randomly really got into? Let me know all of your thoughts. I think one thing that I really like about the Olympics is how now that we're in the digital age, we get more of a behind the scenes look into the athletes and into the Olympic village as well. You know, my TikTok feed was flooded with athletes making vlogs, showing everyone around all the different facilities, you know, showing all the little gift bags that they get. I watched so many what I eat in a days because, you know, they had that massive hall full of all the different cuisines from places all over the world, and it's just that kind of interesting content and engagement that, you know, back in 2008 at the Beijing Olympics, I would have never expected to one day be able to see what the Olympic Village rooms look like or the dining hall looks like without becoming an athlete somehow. So I have to say, to me, and I'd love to know if you agree with this or not, but to me the Olympics is one of those very rare things that's gotten better in the digital age as we've got more internet access, more technology, and, you know, everyone with a smartphone is able to create pretty high quality videos to share with everyone. I love seeing that kind of stuff. It's fun to see athletes like engaging with people online, recreating memes or partaking in digital trends and stuff like that whilst they're at the Olympics. You get to see a glimpse more into who they are as a person, I guess, rather than the normal stuff that you see as, you know, obviously them in focus mode performing on the world stage. I'm interested to know, what other content would you like to see coming out of the Olympics moving forward? I was thinking while I was watching the Olympics how interested I would be into Olympic athletes sharing their beauty tips, because let me tell you, there were some athletes that I saw, right? Honestly, look up the Japanese men's volleyball team right now. Their skin is like my skin goals. I would love for Harper's Bazaar or Vogue or whoever to do like a, you know, those skincare routines with some of these athletes, because truly the skin was glowing, and it wasn't just from sweat, okay? It was glass skin, let me tell you. And then I was watching this Olympic diver, and, you know, she did her dive, she plunged into the water, she came out, her lip combo hadn't moved, okay? Like, I am telling you, I don't know if it was like a lip tattoo or what, I need to know, because she was flipping around in the air and shit, plunging into deep water, and it hadn't moved. And, you know, like the track girls, some of them have like amazing hairstyles, amazing braids. Again, they're not moving. Tell me what hairspray you're using. What gel are you using? I'm so interested to know all of their beauty tips. I will say, it's interesting to me that there aren't more beauty brand deals with Olympic athletes, because, to be honest, if a celebrity from a red carpet is like, I love this hairspray because my hair can look good for the whole night that I'm sitting at the Oscars, it's like, okay, like that's impressive, but also not that impressive, right? Tell me what hairspray I can use so that my hair looks just as flawless after I've run 800 meters around a track. Like, that to me is going to give me a better indication of a good hairspray. I don't want to know whether my lipstick is going to come off on a champagne glass. I want to know, can I dive off a 15-meter diving board and have my lipstick stay flawless? Do you guys follow what I'm saying here? Like, athletes are truly some of the best people to show us like how well a beauty product can last when you're going through like crazy moments in life. I really hope I'm making sense here. No offense, how is someone sitting down for a dinner showing me how good a hairspray is compared to someone who's like running around in heat and sweating. That's something that I would love to see at the 2028 LA Olympics. I would love to see more Olympic beauty tips. I think that there is a potential marketing gap here where beauty brands should be reaching out to some of these Olympic athletes and having them promote their products. Maybe that exists already. If that already exists, like, hit me up, because I would be so interested in following these. Is there any other content that you wish you could see? My other question that I would love to know from everyone is, if you were given 1 year to train, like you didn't have to work, you didn't have to look after kids, like nothing, you were given the year off just to train, what sport by the end of the year do you think you could become an Olympic athlete in? My answer is archery. I don't know if this is some kind of reminiscent Katniss fantasy from my Hunger Games days, but I just think, you know, for archery, like, there's no height advantage, first of all. That's like incredibly important to me because I'm not super tall. So I'm not going to go for swimming, long jump, high jump, whatever, like these things where you need to be tall. But for archery, I don't think you need to be that tall, right? Like, it's more about precision. And then the other thing, it's repetition. You know what you need to do when you step up to do archery. Like, you need to pull back the thing and fire the bow into the middle of the bullseye, right? I just think if I had a year to like literally do that exact one move over and over and over and over and over again, how could I not be a pro by the end of the year? What's your answer though? I'm interested to know. All right, before we get into the top Olympic moments, and probably I should clarify that I'm not recapping like the best sporting moments or, you know, the biggest world records, whatever. Like, I'm truly just talking about viral internet moments here. But before we get into that, I thought I would give you a little Olympics history 101. How did these games start? Where the hell did they come from? I love how I said at the start that these little bonus episodes wouldn't have a research element to them, but like, I guess I just can't help myself. So let's do a little Olympics history 101. So the Olympics started back in 776 BCE, which is around about 2,800 years ago. I always struggle to think about what these long periods of time actually mean. Like, I can't even really visualize 1,000 years, let alone 2,800 years, do you know what I mean? But it roughly equates to the same amount of time that it takes for a man to text you back when he's out with the boys. There is contention as to how the first games were created or who created them, but the overall sentiment is that they were attached to Greek mythology and that they were in some way dedicated to Zeus and some of the other Greek gods. And back then they didn't measure time by years, but by Olympiads. And as you can guess, an Olympiad consists of 4 years, and so that is why to this day we hold the Olympics every 4 years, or every one Olympiad. And I'm guessing that's also the same reason why other major sporting events like the Rugby World Cup or the Football World Cup are also held every 4 years. This is also a friendly PSA to everyone in my personal life that from now on I will be referring to a time period of 4 years as an Olympiad to sound extra pretentious and annoying. And the next time that someone asks me how old I am, I will be telling them that I'm celebrating my 7th Olympiad next year. So the initial Olympic Games included running, wrestling, boxing, pancration, which was like a blend of wrestling and boxing, and then they also had chariot racing as well. And it's no surprise really that only men were allowed to compete in these, but the kind of cool thing is that you could be of any class or any status and you were allowed to compete in the Olympics. So you didn't have to be someone noble or someone rich. However, in spite of this, most of the athletes were obviously soldiers just because they had more of that physicality to them. Some historians believe that women were even banned from watching the Olympic Games, like they weren't allowed to be involved with it at all. But some other historians say that it was only married women that weren't allowed to watch, but as long as you were single, like they didn't have an issue with you watching the games. Very famously, the men would all compete naked, which kind of sounds painful when you think about like trying to, I don't know, box or wrestle with someone and their balls are just like in your face. Some people say that it was the Spartans that introduced nudity to the Olympic Games, and then other people subscribe to the story that one of the first people to win gold in the running event like accidentally lost their clothing, I don't know, while they were running, and then they must have just been such an it girl because then it eventually caught on and then everyone wanted to compete naked as well. Kind of like a Regina George moment there. Maybe they just liked being naked. Free the willy, you know? I also found it interesting that people would travel for this event, kind of like how people travel for the Olympics today. And the winners would receive an olive wreath, which was made from leaves of the sacred olive tree near the temple of Zeus. And they would apparently cut these branches to make the wreaths with like golden scissors, which sounds kind of cool. Now, the reason that the olive wreath was chosen as the prize is because these men were not meant to be competing for possessions, but for virtue. And so the prize being an olive wreath meant that the award didn't have any like inherent value. However, winners would often have a large amount of financial gain after winning just because of all the like fame and accolades that they received. The games went on for hundreds of years, and then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked, which in this case was a Roman emperor named Theodosius I, and he was a Christian and obviously wanted to suppress all pagan practices, which unfortunately also included the Olympic Games because of the way that they were deeply tied to Zeus and to some of the other Greek gods. So he put the kibosh on the Olympics, and the Olympics went on a 1,000-year hiatus. So if you think my mood for feud hiatuses are bad, it could get worse. In 1894, a French guy named Pierre de Coubertin, he had studied the ancient Olympic Games. He was a bit of a historian, and he was like, hey, we should bring these back. And then he founded the International Olympic Committee, and he was also the one who designed the Olympic rings that we still use as the official logo to this day. And he drew them at the top of one of his correspondence letters, basically describing that they were to represent the 5 parts of the world. And then the first modern Olympics were held in Athens to kind of honor the ties to the ancient Olympics. And by the second modern games, women were competing for the first time. So that's super exciting. So another way that the modern Olympics were tied to the ancient Olympics was through the Olympic flame. So in the ancient games, they would have a sacred fire that burnt throughout the entire duration of the Olympic Games, which is super impressive to me because at one point, the ancient Olympic Games went on for like 5 months or something. But that's the reason why we now also have an Olympic flame. Now, the Olympic torch relay, which is when the torch is lit from the Olympic flame in Olympia, and then the flame is like carried to the site of the Olympic Games. This actually wasn't introduced until 1936 when the Olympics were held in Berlin, Germany. Now, at the time, Hitler was in charge and he really wanted to promote like Aryan racial supremacy. And so when one of the German sports administrators was like, oh, maybe we should do like a torch relay, he was like, yeah, this would be a really cool way for him to like connect with other countries by passing the flame from country to country, you know, from Olympia to Berlin. It was like a way for getting everybody involved. And then by hosting the games, he was really hoping to show off some of his Aryan athletes and be like, see, this is the superior race. Like, we're really fast. We're really good at lots of sport things, which I was honestly baffled that the Olympic Games were held in Berlin in 1936. This just seems so incredibly wrong to me, but I guess back then everyone just thought that was fine. The International Olympics Committee did tell Hitler, like, if Berlin is going to host the games, then he can't just have Aryan people competing from Germany. Like, he has to allow Jewish athletes to be able to qualify for the games as well, and so he did eventually agree to that. But again, he really mostly wanted to showcase like how superior the race that he was building was. Now, unfortunately, Germany was the most successful country at the Olympics that year. They were awarded the most medals, which is kind of giving rigged. However, Hitler's hidden agenda was uprooted by an American athlete whose name is Jesse Owens. So Jesse Owens went on to win 4 Olympic medals in sprint and long jump, which made him the most decorated athlete of the games. And Jesse Owens was also a black athlete, which really gave a big fuck you to Hitler's white people with blonde hair and blue eyes are better than you propaganda that he was trying to push. This Olympics was also the first time that the games were televised, and a female filmmaker was commissioned to make a film of the games, which she did, and it was titled Olympia. And interestingly, a lot of her techniques that she used are still used to this day when filming sports. And I would say, yeah, the girls and put her in the Feminist Hall of Fame, but unfortunately she did also use her film talents to make a ton of Nazi propaganda, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, no buts. That's could have been a cool moment. Okay, now that we've all had our little history lesson, came for the feud, stayed for the history lesson, let's get into the top viral moments according to me. Okay, the first one I want to talk about is Snoop Dogg being an official Olympics commentator for NBC. He was also involved with the Olympics in Tokyo, but again, I just wasn't as involved with those Olympics, so I didn't even know that. But this year, I feel like he really stepped it up a notch. And I feel like he really took his job seriously, and he was somehow managing to be at nearly every single Olympic event. And of course, at every event, he was in a well-suited outfit as well. And I just really enjoyed witnessing the events like through his eyes or through his lens, because I feel like Snoop Dogg acts how I would if I were in this position. Like just the way he wants to try out all the different activities and meet all the different athletes, and like the way he is like super passionate and super involved and happy to be there truly makes me think he is kind of like the perfect spectator. He describes that the most memorable moment for him at the Olympics was holding the torch during the torch relay. He was told beforehand that every hand that holds the torch is like a peace messenger, and so while he was holding the torch, he really felt that way heavily on him. And he said he had the spirit of his mom and like Muhammad Ali and all these values to bring peace and love to the world. You know, he was like feeling all of that emotion while carrying this torch. See, the torch relay is such a like wholesome part of the Olympics, and I just couldn't believe that fucking Nazis came up with it. He also sat alongside a lot of athletes' parents and partners and kids and was like cheering them on together. He wore outfits with like athletes' faces on them, and of course a lot of very like Americana red, white and blue outfits as well. I think he even had some like customized shoes that he wore that had like Snoop 2024 Paris written on them. Like he really went all out, and I truly appreciate that. And I just thought he brought such a like fun energy to the Olympics. He even participated in the tradition where athletes like exchange pins with one another. He came equipped with his own pin, which I think he traded with Coco Gauff. Oh my god, I'm realizing now that I've never said Coco's name out loud before. I've only ever read it, and now I'm not sure how to say it. Is it Coco Gauff? This is so embarrassing. Anyway, he traded his pin with Coco, and Snoop Dogg's pin depicts him smoking like in front of the Eiffel Tower, and the smoke rings that he's blowing out like form the Olympic rings, which way back in 1819 whatever, when Pierre was designing these rings, I bet he never had the vision to like think that one day these would be used on a pin by Snoop. He had swimming lessons with Michael Phelps. He also ran on the 200-meter track. He tried out fencing, and then of course he famously attended the dressage event in full riding garb alongside his bestie Martha Stewart. And to me this was just fucking iconic. And he said in an interview that he really needed to have Martha there because he wanted her to teach him like dressage etiquette, and so that he could, you know, get involved in the sport properly and do it all the respectful way. And I just really love that. I wish his commentary was available in this country, because I do think he's a great commentator. I love watching those clips where he commentates the Nature Channel, and I think he just just brings like a really fresh perspective to anything that he's commenting on. I will say, while I was watching the games, I was listening to some really boring commentary, and then it got me thinking, I need some Gen Z podcasters to do Olympic commentary. Like, does this exist anywhere? Because, you know, I personally don't need to know facts like, oh, this is XYZ's 8th time competing at the Olympics, and oh, last time they came 5th, and this time they're recovering from a hamstring injury. Like, no, I want to know, what is their star sign, sun, moon, and rising? I need to know who they're dating. Who are their enemies? Is there any goss happening in the team? Like, who's secretly sleeping with the coach? What is their Myers-Briggs personality? I want to know, are they Team Stefan or Team Damon? Which of them have daddy issues? Which Sex and the City character are they most like? Like, these are all things that I feel are more pertinent to my understanding of them as an athlete. And you know, the commentary we're getting right now is just not very well rounded. So maybe by 2028 we'll have some girlies with like a live stream and a mic, and they're just giving some commentary. But I guess for the meantime, I will also make do with Snoop Dogg's commentary. One of his most viral moments from this Olympics was when he commented that one of the horses in the dressage event was like crip walking and then he even got to meet the horse afterwards and like compliment its crip walk in person and feed it some carrots and apples. And I mean, what's not to love about this? I am very excited. I think Snoop Dogg will be returning as an NBC commentator for the 2028 LA Olympics, and I will definitely be watching. Let's move on to a less fun viral moment, which is when Imane Khelif, an Algerian boxer, was subject to insane internet bullying and harassment, and it was such a shit time to be on the internet. Basically, Imane is an Algerian boxer, and in her first match against Angela Carini, the match only lasted 46 seconds when Carini quit the match, and in the interview afterwards explained that she felt incredible pain after the opening punches from Khelif, and that she's never like experienced such strong punches before. Now, shortly after this match, people did do some internet digging and discovered that the International Boxing Association, the IBA, in 2023 had determined that Imane and another boxer, Lin Yuteng, had XY chromosomes, and XY chromosomes are typically associated with the male sex. This happened in 2023 after the IBA decided to bring back gender testing, even though gender testing in sports is a typically outdated practice. So some internet sleuths dug up this information, and then this started an absolute whirlwind of misinformation to flood the internet gates. But before we get into all that, I need to stress right up the top here to anyone who isn't aware, Imane and Yuteng both identify as females, were assigned females at birth, and have also competed as females throughout the entirety of their sports careers. They also both competed in the Tokyo Olympics and didn't medal, and again, no one was out there accusing them of doing shady shit. The Olympics used to perform mandated gender tests on female athletes, but they decided to stop in the 2000s due to a mix of, first of all, these tests were like high cost. Second of all, they would impose a lot of stress on the athletes. And there was also a clear lack of male athletes attempting to pose as females. There were a ton of ethical concerns and concerns from scientists as to how accurate these tests actually are, because even though everyone likes to just point to the XX or XY chromosomes, the reality is that there are multiple factors that can determine the sex of a person, and it doesn't just come down to chromosomes or hormones. And I guess the crazier thing, to be honest, is believing that out of 8 billion people in the entire world, we're all magically going to perfectly fit into one of two boxes. And the whole idea just really, it's harmful to intersex people. It's harmful to the way sex and gender is perceived, because even scientists are saying it's not as simple as looking at someone's chromosomes, looking at someone's hormones, and then like very definitively being able to place them into, one of two categories. And this is because there is so much variation in human anatomy. And of course, there will always be outliers to anything, to any aspect of the human body and human anatomy. That's why we have the Guinness Book of World Records. In fact, many professional athletes have outliers in their anatomy. So for example, Michael Phelps has a larger wingspan than the average person of his height, and he also has hyperextension in his joints, which scientists say is like both of these features make him more efficient when he's moving in the water, and they make him a better swimmer, and they do give him a slight advantage when he's swimming. Now, the tallest NBA player as well, he was 2 meters 31, and the average height for men worldwide is 1 meter 71. So, again, he had an incredible advantage being taller, towering over the other players. Usain Bolt, another example, his leg length was so much larger than other athletes that on average he could cover 100 meters in 4 to 5 less strides than other athletes. And I just want to make it clear here, I'm not saying that these characteristics automatically make you a world-class athlete, but they certainly are somewhat of an advantage. And it's crazy to me that these are characteristics that people feel like don't threaten the integrity of the Olympic Games. But I don't know, should there be a height limit at the NBA? Should there be wingspan limits for swimming? But that's not fair. Why does Michael Phelps get to compete against people who don't have hyperextension in their joints? Do you know what I mean? Now, because people found out on the internet that the IBA had determined Imane Khelif as having XY chromosomes and high levels of testosterone, I have to say they didn't disclose what tests were done or how this was determined, and there is a little bit of something going on here. I think the best way for me to approach this subject is I'm just going to list a bunch of facts, and whatever conclusion you draw from this is your own. Okay, number 1. The IBA president is Russian, and since being elected as president, he has moved a lot of the operations to Russia. Fact number 2. The International Olympic Committee permanently stripped the IBA's Olympic credentials, so they are not an Olympic recognized governing board. And this is because the president scrapped an election that challenged his leadership, and he also did not follow the Olympic Committee's guidance advising governing bodies to prevent Russian athletes from competing with flags and anthems following the invasion of Ukraine. And then fact number 3, Imane Khelif was disqualified at the World Championships after defeating a Russian boxer during the tournament. So even though she had successfully competed in prior years in the World Championships as a female athlete and recognized as being female, it wasn't until she defeated a Russian boxer during the 2023 tournament that these tests emerged and the IBA ruled Imane as not being female. And again, I'm not drawing conclusions here, okay? I'm just stating some facts. And if you think these are related, then those are your thought processes. So even though scientists and medical practitioners have said time and time again that XY chromosomes and hormones alone cannot determine the sex of a person, the internet went into a fucking uproar when they unearthed this information. And again, the amount of misinformation that spread like wildfire was crazy. There were articles claiming Imane is transgender or assigned male at birth, but as I've mentioned right at the top, this is a lie. So the Olympic Committee did repeatedly defend both boxers' rights to compete as females. One of the spokespersons ended up receiving death threats over this, which is just so fucking horrific. And trigger warning up ahead, I am, for hate speech and transphobic speech as well, but I'm only going to spend like a minute on this because I don't want to give this more airtime than it needs. But I saw some of the most inhumane language being used to describe Imane that just truly made my heart break for her. People saying like, it can say it's a woman all at once. I mean, since when do we describe human beings as it? Like that truly makes my blood boil. And then obviously J.K. Rowling had to fucking pipe up and make some disgusting comments about the match between Imane and Karini being footage of a man abusing a woman. Elon and Trump also weighed in. Not surprised, they are such gross humans. And I have to say, I lost lost a bit of respect for some people in my personal circles as well, because I saw them sharing these articles littered with misinformation and just getting people really barred up about them. And even though this particular case is not a transgender issue, it did really highlight how much further people need to be educated and how much further we as society have to go, because seeing the reactions online makes me fucking hurt for our trans communities. And again, I want to make it so clear, I cannot speak for trans experiences, but my job is to educate myself as best as I can and wholeheartedly encourage everyone around me to do the same. And especially in the age of misinformation, where every motherfucker with a phone can suddenly have a platform, you really need to read beyond a clickbait heading before sharing something that can be so incredibly harmful. Oh my god. It made me fucking upset. That's the best way that I can describe how I felt reading all those articles. So since the scandal broke out, Khelif went on to win the gold medal, and I'm so incredibly proud of her for keeping it so professional and being so focused amid this turmoil. She almost deserves 2 golds for that, because the fact that she even managed to step into the ring and give it her all when all of this shit was happening in the background, I don't know, good for her. She is also filing legal complaints in France for online harassment, bullying, and hate speech, and I hope to dear God that she gets granted a mighty fine check, because what she went through would honestly break me. And even though no amount of money can fix this twisted fucking society that we live in, I do just hope that she does manage to get some kind of compensation. And I hope that they issue some fines, particularly for some of those public figures who are helping to push this hate speech. It's disgusting. Anyway, that's incredibly sad, but bittersweet news, I guess, that she did still manage to come out with the gold. And yeah, I hope that this is a great example to everyone that you need to keep reading up. We need to keep educating, we need to keep having these conversations with people in our circles, because the way that everyone reacted to this was just uncalled for. Okay, let's move on to a slightly less heavy viral moment, which was the multiple scandals that came out of the US women's gymnastics team. So I watched these women compete, and I have to say the US gymnastics team truly are phenomenal. Simone Biles in particular, I mean, to stand out amongst the world's best is just absolutely amazing. But all the athletes in the US women's team were incredible to watch. So first of all, I really want to talk about the controversial comments that Michaela Skinner made regarding the US team. So in a YouTube video that was made July 2024, Michaela, she's a former US gymnast. She made a comment that besides Simone, she feels the talent and depth isn't what it used to be, and that a lot of the girls don't work hard and don't have a work ethic. Michaela has since apologized for her comments and also claims that they were misinterpreted, and she was speaking about US gymnastics in general and not about the girls in the Olympic team. But I don't know, because she mentions Simone, so I thought her argument was weak. But I guess the biggest thing I'd have to say is Jojo, did you learn nothing? Because Kim Kardashian West already made this mistake, coming out in interviews saying women don't work or women don't want to work hard, and it never bodes well, because it just seems like a really hateful comment to make. It's just not being a girl's girl, do you know what I mean? And understandably, the US Olympic team was pissed by her comments, including Simone Biles, even though she, tried to keep Simone out of the statement by saying that besides Simone, she felt like the talent and depth wasn't there. But Simone was still pissed, which love that for her. She's like, don't single me out. And then when the USA team took home gold, Simone captioned the image of them winning, "Lack of talent, lazy Olympic champions." Obviously a reference to the video that Michaela had uploaded to YouTube. And then later, Simone also posted on Twitter saying, "Oop, I've been blocked." Is this JD? Is this messy? Yes, but I will say this is my ideal level of petty, especially because, again, Michaela tried to single Simone out in her statement and exclude her from it, and Simone's like, no, bitch. Now, of course, the public took to the internet. Most of it was harmless banter, but of course, some of the crazy people had to take it too far, and Michaela and her family were subjected to a lot of online bullying. Now, I found this interesting. She actually tried to reach out to Simone and asked her to put an end to the bullying. And as far as I know, Simone hasn't commented on this. And I have to say, I feel like this is kind of fair because it's not really her mess to fix. Like, Michaela was the one who said that shit and then she couldn't stick to her guns. Do you know what I mean? Shortly after this whole scandal broke, Michaela did announce that she's taking a break from the internet, which I think this is the best approach because it was a silly mistake and it wasn't a very nice thing to say, but it's also not life-ending. And in a month or 2 months, the world will forget and move on and she'll be able to come back. So I think an internet break is the perfect resolution to this. Now, another scandal concerning the US women's gymnastics team was when Jordan Chiles, one of the athletes, had her bronze medal revoked. So this all started with her floor routine. At this stage, the points between competing athletes were incredibly close, and the floor routine would ultimately be crucial in determining who the medal winners were going to be. And I think in the end, it came down to 1/10 of a point. So the competition was incredibly tight. Initially, Jordan was awarded a 13.666, which would have placed her in 5th place. However, her coach Cecile Landy filed an inquiry over Jordan's difficulty score, and after the judges reviewed this, they ruled in her favor and awarded her an extra 0.1 point, which was enough to bump Jordan from 5th place to 3rd place, obviously making her a medal winner. Again, like the competition was tight. So that meant that following Jordan's score being revised, Rebecca Andrade, a Brazilian athlete, was in 1st position, Simone Biles in 2nd, and Jordan Chiles in 3rd. And the athlete who was in 3rd place before Jordan's score was adjusted was Ana Barbosu from Romania. Now, pretty soon after this whole medal debacle, racists took to the internet to harass Jordan and accuse her of being a cheater and creating disgusting and degrading images, and turned this whole thing, which was about a gymnastics technicality and scoring, into a fucking race issue because Ana Barbosu is white, which once again, just I fucking hate it here. I don't want to be here. This is why I have such a love-hate relationship for the internet, because it like brings me so much joy at times, like when I'm watching Snoop Dogg gallivanting around with Martha Stewart, and then at the same time it just makes me fucking hate society. In spite of this though, the moment went incredibly viral because this was the first time that the athletes on a gymnastics podium at the Olympics were all black athletes. And we got that very iconic moment when Jordan suggested to Biles that they should like bow to Andrade. And yeah, it was a great day. And I remember seeing this photo like, wow, this is going to be in the history books one day. And I'll definitely be uploading this photo to my Instagram, Mood for Feud, just in case you haven't seen it. Now, the International Gymnastics Federation does set a bunch of rules for how these inquiries and challenges to an athlete's score can be made, and one of them is that a coach has to make any inquiries immediately after a publication score. So coaches have 1 minute from when the score is shown to first make the verbal request for an inquiry. And the person who receives the inquiry then has to record the time that they received it so that they can make sure it was like within that 1 minute time limit. Now, the Romanian Gymnastics Federation filed a challenge with the Court of Arbitration for Sport to review whether this inquiry that Jordan's coach made followed these strict guidelines. And their argument was that the US coach made the challenge 4 seconds after the 1 minute deadline. So the challenge and Jordan's revised score following the challenge should be void. Both parties ended up making a case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and eventually the court ruled in Team Romania's favor, and this meant that Jordan's revised score was revoked, which meant she ended up placing in 5th, and the bronze medal was then awarded to Anna instead. And it's pretty crazy to me that even after you've like stood on the damn podium holding the medal, the medal still might not be yours. And look, I'm sure that that 1 minute deadline rule is in place for a reason, but I feel like there just needs to be more caution given as to when that deadline is actually up. Like, can't they spare one person whose job it is to just use a fucking atomic clock or whatever to measure out the 60 seconds from when the score is shown, so that as soon as a coach tries to make a challenge outside of the 1 minute, they can be like, no, like, we're not even going to look at this further. Surely there's a way to determine in the moment whether or not the challenge is valid or not. Do you know what I mean? So following this decision, the USA Gymnastics and US Olympic and Paralympic Committee both made joint statements in support of Jordan, stating that the challenge was made in good faith and that it was also successful. So, you know, the judges had in fact made a mistake in the way that they originally scored Jordan. And Jordan also makes a statement saying she will take some time from social media, which is so valid. Interestingly, after the medal was revoked, USA Gymnastics presented video evidence that the challenge had in fact been made within the 60-second deadline. But at this stage, the Olympic Committee refused to consider the evidence as it was presented too late. So that is again super unfortunate. I just don't really understand, if this video evidence existed, how did they first determine that the challenge was made 4 seconds too late? Surely they had to look at evidence for that, right? And then surely that evidence would have shown that it in fact was early. Like, I don't know, something's weird here, and I truly can't understand what it is. I saw a lot of people online saying that if they were Anna, they wouldn't accept the medal, you know, they'd like give it back to Jordan because technically she did score higher. The judges made a mistake and then it was rightfully challenged, but then the challenge was void. And to that, I just kind of have to say, like, be so fucking for real. Like, there's no way that you actually as an athlete would give up a medal if you didn't have to. A medal isn't just a medal, it's a lifetime of sponsorships. It's life-changing money for the individual, but also for the industry. A lot of sports funding is based off of medals. So turning down a medal isn't just you being a morally good person. It's like you're losing money for your sport, for future athletes and current athletes that are enrolled. There's just no way. It's honestly a lose-lose situation. Obviously, Anna is probably super stoked that she got a bronze medal, but at the same time, it's like annoying because you can't even really enjoy it, right? Because half the internet is like, you need to give that back. And then obviously you and your brain also know that technically Jordan did score better than you, the judges just made a mistake. So I don't know, I feel like you wouldn't really enjoy it the same. And also she missed out on a podium moment. Maybe this isn't the case for everyone, but like half the reason I'd want a medal is so I can stand on the podium. Do you know what I mean? Either way, I think this is a good example as to why this 60-second rule needs to be monitored a bit better, so that if a challenge is accepted on the day, then that's just it. Like, you can't go and challenge the challenge, because there is something really twisted in letting an athlete accept their medal and then strip it off them based on a technicality. Okay, the next viral moment that I want to talk about is the Gunn breakdancing moment. So this was actually the very first Olympics that included breaking as a sport, and one of the representatives from Australia was a B-girl, as they're called, named Rachel Gunn, who goes by the name Gunn. So Rachel competed and scored 0 in all of her battles, which then caused speculation online that she had somehow cheated her way into the Olympics. A couple of important things here. The final score that you see at the end of a battle doesn't actually include a breakdown of all the individual scoring categories. So even though it looks like Gunn didn't score any points in any of her battles because her overall score was always 0, she did in fact get some points in some of the individual categories that make up the final score. So in her battles, she did in fact score higher than her opponents in the originality and vocabulary categories, but because she lost overall, her overall score was recorded as a 0. And look, I watched her routine and I mean, it definitely entertained me, let's say that. But to think that she somehow duped her way into the Olympics, I feel like that's a bit far-fetched. There's even a change.org petition that got started, which was calling for public apologies from the Australian Breaking Association and Gunn, because all of these internet theories started circulating online. Firstly, the Australian Breaking Association was criticized for its selection process. Then there were theories coming out that Gunn held a position of power in the association and that she had somehow managed to select herself as the athlete going forward. When people found out that her partner is also a breakdancer, they were then like, oh, he was the one who sat on the board and managed to get her voted in. But I just feel like this is so crazy because, when you see an athlete and they have an off day and they run really slow or whatever, do people immediately start theorizing that they duped the selection process? No, people just accept that they had a bad day or whatever, or that maybe you're competing at the world stage, so coming last at the Olympics, you're still gonna be miles better than any of the other athletes. Do you know what I mean? So I think that the reason why Gunn's performance was so odd looking is because she really wanted to use the opportunity at the Olympics to showcase a lot of originality and some moves that aren't typically seen in the sport. She was kind of trying to pioneer something. And whenever you do something like that, where you're trying to be the first to do something crazy, it's always going to be a hit or miss, right? So I don't really blame her for that. Also, the other athletes were incredibly skilled, and yeah, again, I don't know. But a lot of people felt like Gunn was just being a bit of a troll and not taking this opportunity to be an Olympic athlete seriously. I will say it's very tricky to tell because breaking does have a sense of showmanship in it, so where do you draw the line between performing and goofing around? Either way, the LA 2028 Olympics won't have breaking as a sport, so we unfortunately won't see anything further from Gunn for the time being. A lot of people online have twisted this to say that it was following her performance that the LA Olympics committee took breaking out as a sport, but they actually decided this last year, so way before the world had heard about Gunn. And then the next thing I want to talk about, I feel like we're getting lighter and lighter with the stories. We started off a little bit heavy, so I'm kind of glad to get into some lighter topics. The next thing I want to talk about is the Türkiye shooting meme. Now, this came around when Turkish pistol shooter Yusuf Dekic went viral for his really casual attitude while shooting, and he eventually won the silver medal as well. So the reason people thought he looked so casual is he has a t-shirt on, he's got one hand in his pocket, he's wearing just ordinary glasses, and honestly he just looks cool, composed. He just looks meh, whatever, And some of the other shooting athletes wear blinders so that they can see better. They wear visors to protect them from glare and have all these special lenses and just have all this equipment to assist them in their shot. And so I think the way that Yusuf was able to just step up in his t-shirt, pull the trigger and come second was just a bit insane. So Yusuf has since said that despite his unbothered queen appearance, internally he in fact had a lot going on, and there were a lot of emotions racing around. But I think the reason why I enjoyed this meme or this viral moment so much is because it went viral so quickly that other athletes at the Olympics were able to parody this as a celebration, and we almost had an inside joke kind of moment at the Olympics. So there were a lot of athletes across pole vaulting, running, rugby, the whole lot, who whenever they had a celebratory moment, they would pose in Yusuf's shooting stance. And I don't know, to me this is just a great example of how, again, the Olympics has improved with the digital age. It was also just a very fun moment and very in the spirit of what the Olympics is for, which is, countries coming together and competing, but in a friendly manner, And then the last viral moment that I want to talk about is the pole vault Shillong debacle, which happened when pole vaulter Anthony Ammirati went viral because his bulge actually knocked the crossbar during his pole vault jump at the semi-final. For obvious reasons, the internet went feral for this moment, and he gained a bunch of Instagram followers shortly after. And then the craziest thing is he received an offer from Darren Parker, who is the vice president of Cam Soda, which is an adult entertainment site that does a lot of cam videos. And Darren Parker offered Anthony a $250,000 $250,000 paycheck in exchange for a 60-minute cam show. Would you take the deal? I want to say that I wouldn't, but like $250,000, that's nearly $100,000 more than he would receive if he won a gold medal. It's a lot of money. What can we learn from this moment? Pole vaulters might want to consider tucking. Anthony has taken this moment in good faith. Obviously, he was really annoyed that he missed the jump because, you know, he's there to compete at the Olympics, but he has leaned into the joke on TikTok, which I think is nice, and he's able to laugh at the fact that he's literally a world-class athlete, and yet people are just obsessed with the fact that his bulge was big enough to knock off the crossbar. And those were, in my opinion, some of the biggest viral internet moments from the 2024 Olympics. What were your favorite moments from the games, and were there any that I missed? Some honorable mentions that I have written down is the pommel horseman, the China badminton proposal, the surfer who mooned us, and the chocolate muffin man. I didn't have time to get into any of those, and I sound like a crazy person rattling them off like that, but you can do your own internet research if you don't know what any of those are and you're curious. Let me know what you thought of the first bonus episode. If you haven't done so already, please leave a review and share this podcast with a friend or foe. And next week we will be back to another feud deep dive, and we're going to look into the "It Ends With Us" drama that's currently all over the internet, so make sure you tune into that. And otherwise, I will talk to you guys next week. I hope you have a great week out there. Thank you so much for listening. I say this every week and it probably sounds generic, but like genuinely, thank you for listening. I cannot express that enough. I'm so grateful for every single person that plays this episode and, you know, dedicates an hour of their life each week to listen to me talk. You guys mean so much to me. Truly, I just hope you guys all have a fabulous, fantastic week, and I will talk to you later. Bye!